Today we're going to be looking at the new EA from Pablo at Blood's Algo, which is the Karat Killer. So this one looks really interesting because he's been developing a bunch of different expert advisors, mostly on gold and I think some on indices as well. And I've heard nothing but good things so far from his new bots, and curious to dive into this one and also see what kind of makes it tick. So what's really interesting, and I touched on this in my previous review of one of his other bots, is that he's developing custom machine learning models, but he's doing so in a way which is actually legitimate, because like all of his wordage here where he talks about like ONNX, and I believe he's using XGBoost here as well, that means that he actually knows what he's doing. Because oftentimes you will read MQL5 sales pages and people just put this random jargon which talks about like quantum computing, neural optimization, and it's obvious that they just kind of put ChatGPT to write a sales page. And that is very much fake. Whereas the things that he's mentioning here, like ONNX model, ONNX runtime, using an ensemble model, all of that is real machine learning. So I personally have developed a whole bunch of machine learning models in Python, and this is how you would take those and you would implement them and you'd add them to an expert advisor. So you can usually train the models in Python, you export them as a ONNX file, and then you can read said file in the EA. And you can actually load that file when you compile the EA. So this is the legitimate way to actually do that. Another way of doing it is you can custom code your own machine learning models too, but that takes that's a different level of expertise. So like if you look at Brandon, for instance, he actually knows how to code neural nets from scratch, but that's like pretty hardcore stuff. So he does that himself, whereas when I've done it, and I think when most folks do it, you just use a Python package because it's pre-made. There's a bunch of extremely smart PhDs who like to make open source models, and you can just piggyback off these guys. And frankly, like XGBoost, I believe was developed by Lightboost was developed by Microsoft. XGBoost, I think it's just a couple, I think it's an open source one, but very smart software engineers who they specialize in doing this. CatBoost was made by Yandex, which is a Russian company, but there's a whole bunch of different open source models which are actually really, really solid, and particularly good for trading are usually these decision tree models, which I believe is what he generally will underpin in some of his strategies. But along with that, obviously, you need to have a real technical analysis strategy on top of it. So usually what you do is you have a real strategy, and then you can have a confirmation of feeding a bunch of data to an ML model, which then tells you whether or not it's more likely to be a good trade, so a profitable trade, or a unprofitable trade. Sometimes you can use a classifier that says, is the asset going to go up or down? And that can be an additional filter. So overall, it looks pretty solid. So here he's saying that there's a bunch of different machine learning models, which seems legitimate. He's used some really good best practices to actually develop this bot, including a walk-forward validation. It's not only buy only, which is good on gold, because as of late, a lot of bots have been looking fantastic by only longing gold in a very bullish regime, so obviously they'll be super profitable. But overall, looks pretty solid. From what I can see so far by running the backtest, is it looks to be more of a breakout style system, and I think he's kind of overlaying his ML model on top of that. Another cool thing is that he's recently launched a new company which is doing analytics on trading data. And I think if you buy this bot, you also get free access to his analytics platform, which is pretty neat. A lot of traders are always looking for creative ways to track their performance, and trade journaling is a very interesting field, and a lot of folks have been kind of developing new companies here. So I think it's pretty cool. He's throwing in an extra bonus, and the fact that you get complimentary access is pretty neat. So overall, looks really solid so far. The one thing to note is there's no live signal. Most likely we'll see one coming sooner rather than later, but probably it's going to be more expensive at that point. So usually what a lot of developers will do, good ones that is they'll release the bot before you have too much performance, but they'll release it pretty cheaply. And then as the performance gets longer, as the track record gets longer, obviously the bot becomes de-risked, right? So like they're not de-risked, but there's much less risk in buying a bot that has a 1-year track record. So therefore, there's no reason why you would sell it for as cheap of a price as $250. And I would expect something similar to happen here. So overall, it looks good. But all of this is more like he's touching on the fact that like with gold, you need to have a larger account size to trade it in a smart way. Makes sense. He's also talking about some of the ways that he's developed it. But the main thing here is that I want to do is to go and dive into the actual strategy. So I ran a backtest here on Vantage, and it looks like a classic breakout style system. So it's more like a trend following, or kind of breakout, more like a trend following style system. We can see that it's kind of riding these big upward trends. I'm going to try and find us a few shorts too. Yep, so here we go, some nice shorts as well. So overall, it looks to be more of a trend follower, which makes sense for gold. Like here we can see a losing trade where it tried to have a breakout. Most likely, he's either using a price action based signal, perhaps EMAs, to indicate when it's going to go, and it clearly then it did not end up winning there because there was a reversal. And in terms of the signal, there's a few different things that he's putting here. He does appear to have a few different like machine learning inputs that you're able to toggle, which is pretty interesting. You also have like a machine learning threshold. So I guess if you want to put more trades or less trades, you can toggle that, which also makes a lot of sense. The only thing which I would be a little bit concerned about is because the backtest looks so good, you'd have to know like how careful was he to avoid overfitting. So that's another interesting factor there. We are seeing a high win rate with a positive risk reward, so it looks really, really good. The only thing, like, I wouldn't be too skeptical about that because of the conditions that gold has been in for the past year. So it's been relatively easy to make trend following systems on gold just because it's been trending so hard. But if the regime shifts, I would expect these statistics to maybe be not as good, because seeing like almost a 70% win rate with a positive risk reward, to me, it looks a little bit too good to be true long term. However, it makes sense given the current regime, right? Like, it's been gold trending so hard has been a massive boon, and the fact that like he's been able to ride this trend up is going to make the backtest look amazing. So overall, it looks good though. It looks validated. It looks like there's certainly a real strategy here, but we do have to be mindful that I wouldn't expect a 70% win rate with a super high risk reward going forward, like super long term. Like in 5 years, that's almost, in my opinion, that's wishful thinking. So let's just run a visual backtest here. Oh. Just to see if we're able to get some more data. So yeah, like classic, more trend following system. It's not a classic support and resistance breakout, so I venture that there's probably some other thing going on. Oh, let me just pause that. We are seeing that there is the machine learning score going on too, which is also interesting. So that's the ensemble model. Oh, cool. That's actually really neat. So he's using an XGBoost model with a LGBM, so that's light gradient boosting machine, and random forest and stacking them. So that's actually really, really cool. So yeah, he does appear to really have used AI here. Like the fact that all of these models do spit out confidence scores and he's kind of putting them together in an ensemble model, that's really neat. So it shows that he is indeed a software engineer, he knows what he's doing, and this is a certain level of sophistication. So overall, looks really good. Good job, Pablo. The problem is with these ML models, you never know. Like, you could have just trained them incorrectly, or you could think you did a good job, and in reality you overfit it. Like, there's so many nuances that you can do with this style of system. You just got to be careful, because let's say, for instance, he trained XGBoost and he had like 75 layers. He could have enormously overfit the model. I have no idea, and you just can't see that without knowing his how he actually did it. However, because he knows what he's doing, I venture he avoided some of those common pitfalls that people do. So overall, looks really good. If you're interested in learning more, I'd probably reach out to him just to kind of get a bit of a better idea of what exactly he did. However, this works. Like, I've ran, like, my missile bot's been running for I think over a year and a half, close to a year and a half, and it has a machine learning model that has a random forest built in. So this works. It's not a super far-flung idea. It's pretty easy to, not pretty easy, but it's doable to do this. It's not like this crazy. It's not rocket science, and overall looks to have a real strategy. So guys, looks pretty solid. I'd be curious to see how the signal performs live, but overall, this is definitely a well-made piece of trading machinery, and I think some folks would be pretty interested in checking it out. So guys, let me know if you buy it, and yeah, see you in the next video.